I've ragged on game journalists for quite a while now, and you have people saying that what they said doesn't really matter. Their voice and opinions are ignored by the people on the industry, and they should never ever be listened to. Well, after recent events, I want to say that at least I agree on the last part. But before we get to the news, I want to say huge thanks to those who support me by liking or sharing my videos, subscribing or following me on Twitter, and sponsoring me through PayPal, Patreon, and many other means, links down below. Also, huge thanks to Ronald for the pledge on Patreon, you are fantastic. So there's this upcoming game called Rape Day, and if I have to be honest with you, it looks awful. The concept of the game is simple. You are a psychotic murderer and you can rape, kill, and maim people, especially women, during a zombie apocalypse. Imagine Telltale's Walking Dead, except it was made with a $5 budget and you're in a hentai plot. I don't really know why a game like this, which is very sexual and provocative in nature, is on Steam in the first place. I'd expect something like this to appear on Kotaku or something. Now, I've talked about Steam banning anime games before, and there used to be a time where I was really confident that Steam's brand new as long as it's not illegal, it's fine policy is going to be amazing for future games on their platform. I understand that this is the sort of decision that would warrant garbage like Rape Day, but at least Valve would allow game developers to freely express their games regardless of its content, as long as it's not illegal. But then they banned visual novels with high school themes, and the most egregious of all, banning a game that was rated T by the ESRB because it has lollies in them. I applaud Steam for taking a stance and letting a lot of games to be released as long as it's not illegal, but Steam's recent antics with a lot of anime games, especially indie anime games, leave a lot of people's heads scratching to say the least. The issue with Steam has always been the ridiculous double standards. It's the inconsistent policies of not allowing certain games on the platform, but also allowing other games on the platform as well for having pretty much the same, if not worse, content. But then this game shows up and said, guys, we're gonna see if Valve actually allows this game. And this is where game journalists, instead of shutting their freaking mouth, puts the game up into the public for everyone to see, causing Valve to not ship the game on Steam. Let's get into this post because I find the reasoning to be pretty interesting.
Over the past week, you may have heard about a game called Rape Day coming soon to Steam. Today, we decided to not distribute the game on Steam. Given our previous communication around who gets to be on the Steam store, we think this decision warrants further explanation.
Look, I get that the game looks like somebody made it for $5, but yes, Steam, we do need further explanation on this. Not just this, but also the rest of the visual novels that you banned.
Much of our policy around what we distribute is, and must be, reactionary. We simply have to wait and see what comes to us via Steam Direct. We then have to make a judgment call about any risk it puts to Valve, our developer partners, or our consumers. After significant fact-finding and discussion, we think Rape Day poses unknown cost and risk, and therefore won't be on Steam.
So, in other words, you removed the game to save your face? You removed this game because you're concerned that it might put unknown costs and risks to developer partners or consumers? You've had games in your platform that are much worse than this.
We respect developers' desire to express themselves, and the purpose of Steam is to help developers find an audience, but this developer has chosen content matter and a way of representing it that makes it very difficult for us to help them to do that.
Okay, Valve, let me make this simple. Is the game gratuitous and stupid? Yes, and so is Mortal Kombat, and so is Grand Theft freaking Auto. There's nothing in this game that produces content that is just as bad as Mortal Kombat or Grand Theft Auto. This game is nothing. Hell, the developers even said that it has over 7,000 words. To put it in perspective, this video has about 3,000 words. Imagine how short this game is if 7,000 words is something to boast at. Steam just really cannot be trusted. It makes their previous policy on allowing games that are not illegal to be really damn questionable. Since we have established that you're not getting any benefits on allowing games that are not illegal, what is left? That's right, more shovelwares. It makes me to retract my comments dismissing the abundance of shovelwares in this platform. It makes me say, you know what, maybe some form of quality control is necessary. I mean, if Valve doesn't want to do it, at least recommend curators. The part that I find absolutely insane to me was the fact that nobody would have known about this game if not for the game journalists talking about it. The game would have faded into obscurity anyway, especially considering the fact that you have to sign in to access this game at all because the game is rated adult only. And now you've talked about this game and got the game banned on Steam, you'll have potential customers to be interested in this game. It makes me to question, why are you doing this in the first place? Why are you giving this game so much unnecessary coverage? Polygon was mostly balanced on this entire thing, but their title is pretty much indicative of their intention. They have criticized this policy in the past, so they're making this article to go, what about this, Valve? Do you think this game is acceptable? Certainly not. Then the writer talks about other games.
While it was seen as a boon that the platform allows for games with sexual content, the fact that you have to log in, opt in, and look for games in question means that games with LGBT themes are treated the same as games like Rape Day by the platform.
Writer, that's not true. There are many LGBT content on Steam that you can access even without logging in. The only thing that you need to do is the usual punching in your dates even if you're already logged in because Steam has a very short-term memory. The next take is from Kotaku. This one is even more biased. The writer straight up said that looking at the screenshots made me physically ill. And I'm not exaggerating because, well, the writer himself said he's not exaggerating. I think this is an excellent illustration in how thin-skinned these people are. Then again, working on Kotaku and writing outrage baits require this characteristic to be apparent to all the writers. Ah yes, I forgot, the developers also have its own Q&A in its website that looks like it was made in basic HTML. He's pretty blatantly honest on the answers. He likes porn, he likes horror, so that's why he made this game. The developers also said, at some point in the future, game historians will look back on visual novels like Rape Day, which sounds like a pretentious statement, but considering the reactions that this game has, it's not really that pretentious in hindsight. People actually talked about this game, so good job, game devs.
The fact that Steam doesn't have a unique tag for sexual violence, or in this case failed to deploy it, offers a small glimpse into why the platform's existing approach to curating content is so inadequate.
You know what? I agree with Kotaku at this moment. Steam should have had at least a tag for sexual violence and let these journalists filter them so that they don't get physically ill. GameIndustry.biz has an even longer take on this, and it's an opinion piece. The first few parts of the article describe what the game's about, so let's just skip that and get straight into the take.
In the case it permits Rape Day to sell on Steam, Valve risks pushing away anyone with aspirations of respectability or mainstream acceptance.
Nah, not really. This is only one game amongst all of AAA games being released in this platform. Do you think that this game will overshadow a lot of the good features that Steam has? Do you think that this game will automatically make game developers, you know what, I will not be publishing games on this platform. I prefer to look dignified than having my games sold and making money in the process. That's a very smart business decision.
Valve is already facing enough competition from Epic Game Store, Discord, and the like that it lowered its revenue share from the sorts of multi-million selling titles AAA publishers produce, and companies like Deep Silver and Ubisoft already feel comfortable skipping Steam with Metro Exodus and The Division 2, respectively.
Yeah, we talked about this in other videos. Steam is still superior compared to those two because it actually has really good features and regional pricing is nice, except if you're Koei Tecmo.
If Valve wants to go to bat for Rape Day, it is giving its aggressive and deep-pocketed storefront competitors a huge opening to steal away the most reputable and profitable publishers on its service.
Also, a big no on that, unless if you go to every game publisher and developer and tell everybody, hey, Steam is selling this garbage game, don't sell games on this platform, which, well, we'll get to that.
And in the case Valve prevents the game from ever launching, it probably makes the more pragmatic decision from a profitability standpoint, but it still takes a hit to its reputation for allowing the game page to go up in the first place, for hosting it for weeks, for working with the developer to determine where it could be legally sold, according to one of the developer's updates, and then for backtracking when the entirely predictable backlash hit.
In other words, Valve would still get a bad rep regardless if the game is removed or not. That's actually a really good point, except in my opinion, the rep would be even worse if they straight up banned the game, which they did. At least if they left the game alone, it would be consistent with what they said, because this game isn't illegal, and now they removed this game thanks to the moral outrage that you guys are giving, so good job on that, guys.
Permitting Rape Day on the storefront isn't a statement that Valve believes rape is a societal good and should be promoted as such. It's just that Valve cares about helping interactive rape fantasies reach as large as audience as possible more than it has any opinion of any kind about rape.
It's almost like if it's a video game or something. This is a really stupid criticism. So you're criticizing Valve for not making any opinion about rape? Who cares about what Valve thinks about rape? What does that have to do with the video game in question? You just admitted that Valve isn't really saying that rape is a societal good. So what's the issue here? That they didn't make any statement about it? That they didn't become a megaphone for you?
The refusal to apply any kind of values to content moderation and community management certainly does protect people's right to free speech, but it also turns your platform into a cesspool overflowing with people whose speech is not welcome anywhere else in society.
That's the point of free speech. You let people who have unwelcoming opinions to air them so that the world can know how much they are unwelcome. How are we supposed to know if people's speech are unwelcome if they don't even have the freedom to air them?
As a journalist, I'm a big fan of free speech. I've built my livelihood on it.
No, you're not. The moment you say that free speech should be used responsibly is the moment you admit it to the world that you want to control what people say.
Free expression is a powerful thing, but you have to be thoughtful about how you exercise that power. What platforms like Steam and 8chan seek to do when they value free speech above all is to give themselves permission to be thoughtless.
Yes! That's the point of free speech. You can say whatever you want, even the stupidest and most ridiculous of things. Who gets to decide what speech is thoughtful, writer? I personally think your speech contains no thought whatsoever. Should you be banned from it? No. And if you want to talk about someone using their free speech irresponsibly, this is a pretty irresponsible use of free speech. Maybe that's why you're a fan of it.
To not think about when they'll draw the line, to not worry about what horrid ideologues they are elevating and amplifying with their platform, to not concern themselves with the impact they are having on the world, to not consider
Okay, stop. What impact? What kind of impact would this sort of little game would have in this world? 7,000 plus freaking words for this game. This game is shorter than the fanfictions I made when I was 16. The only person who exposes many people to this game is game journalists like you. You're the one who lets people know that this game exists. This game has zero impact from the start. You cannot access this game unless you're logged in. But then you got trigger happy and people know about this game, and some of which are probably interested to buy it. Also, I find it ironic that you talk about using free speech responsibly and that Valve isn't worried about what kind of horrid ideologies they are elevating and amplifying with their platform. This is coming from GameIndustry.biz, who have consistently pushed far left ideologies in the past. I just find it ironic that the people who are actually using free speech irresponsibly are telling other people that they are being irresponsible on their use of free speech.
I get why they would do this. It's not especially fun to think through these things, and you rarely wind up with a clear dividing line between acceptable and unacceptable. It's not a satisfying exercise. You never get confirmation which calls were right and which ones were wrong, and it's nearly impossible to be consistent in applying the same set of values to each decision, but choosing not to make these calls is still a choice. Finding an excuse to forego the exercise entirely doesn't make you a principled defender of free speech, it makes you a moral coward.
It makes you a moral coward. Wow, that is definitely something that a moral guardian would say. That is something that a virtue-signaling journalist would say in order to make people feel guilty that they're not being moral enough or that they don't signal their virtues enough. Who cares about Valve's virtue? Or yours for that matter? I'm just trying to picture what the goals of these game journalists are for writing articles on this game. Is it to prove the point of Steam that their policies are inconsistent? Is it to tell game developers and publishers that they are sharing a platform with this game? According to the last bit of this article, that's exactly what this writer wants to do.
A tasteless game can be made by one person, but it takes the 170 people who make up Valve to make the game available to 125 billion more, to give it a stamp of legitimacy in our culture. It takes the 2,000 more at Electronic Arts, Activision, Bethesda, Ubisoft, Take-Two, and every other publisher on Steam to share the platform with this content, to say that they have no problem selling their games on the same digital shelf as Rape Day.
It's almost like these big game companies care about money or something. Thankfully, you're only sending your messages to the worst of the worst companies imaginable, so even if any of these companies responded to you and pulled their games from Steam, which they didn't, it's not a huge loss for me. I mean, nobody's crying when the Division 2 went to Epic Game Store because the Division 1 wasn't that great. My best games of this year consist of games made by Japanese studios. What does the Western gaming industry has to offer this year? Anthem? Also, why are you contacting EA? They have their own freaking digital distribution platform. They have games on Steam, sure, but they're mostly older games that not a lot of people care about, nor does EA. I could go on and on about this, but I think that's enough to illustrate my overall point. Steam is inconsistent with its policies. We've already established that for a while now. With this brand new policy, the best thing that Steam can offer to us in terms of games is more and more shovelwares. So rejoice, lazy and amateur game developers, except for making hentai games with high schoolers in them, which in that case, get the hell away from this hellhole and go back to Kotaku or DL site. Still, I find it utterly bonkers that these game journalists can highlight one piece of shovelware, make articles asking Steam on why this game is acceptable on their platform, and somehow have the game to be banned on it. Imagine if this happens to literally any game that a journalist got offended by. They'd be offended by literally anything these days. After all of this, you're still telling me that game journalists have no power in this industry? I beg to differ, my friends. I beg to differ.